Hello there, how are you doing? Now in this video you're going to learn about exceptions. Okay, so constructors are great for verifying that supplied arguments are the right type, such as we have this constructor. We could specify we want this id to be integer type, we want this to be string type, and so on, right? So this is great, but what if they don't supply the integer and they supply some string or something? We have to throw an exception, right? That's we have to throw an error. So how do we do that? That's when this exception object comes in. Okay, so we can use that whenever there is an error. They need a way to complain if there's a problem, right? So this is where an exception comes in. An exception is a special object that can be used to indicate that something exceptional has happened. Okay, so let's see this in action. What we can do is we can go to this thread we created earlier for id unique. Okay, so if have one if statement, so we can say if id is smaller than 0, right? So they could be supplying the -1, which would make no sense, right? So what we could say is if id is smaller than 1, in that case, because -1 still would be considered the integer. Okay, so if the id is smaller than 1, what we would like to do is we would like to throw new exception. Okay, and we could give some kind of message here: id cannot be negative number, or something like that. Okay, so this is a very simple use of exception. We can throw an exception using this throw keyword, and we created this new instance of exception, and then we pass in whatever we would like to say. Now in this case we just want to say the simple message. Now let's go to init.php and let's give it a try. So the new basic customer, first customer. Okay, let me get rid of it. So the first customer, let's comment all this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just var dump this first customer, which is the basic type. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give instead -1. Let's see what happens. Save, go refresh. Okay, so we get the error here. It doesn't find the exception. That's because we need to say use exception. Okay, so it comes with PHP, so all we have to do is the thread, this one, right? So what we can do is we can say use exception. So this is where we're using exception, right? We're throwing the exceptions. Save, refresh. Okay, so as you can see, the error says on-cut exception id cannot be a negative number. Okay, so that's fine, but how do we deal with this? Because it doesn't really make much sense. So what we can do in this situation is we can use try catch block. Okay, so first we give a certain piece of code to try that out, and if something happens, then we will catch the exception. We throw the exception. If that is successful, that's fine. If not, it will throw an exception, and that exception we will catch, and we can echo it out as a message. Okay, so let's do that. So what we can do is inside this set id, the entire if statement, and this another if statement, and another up to here. So this is the end here. So all this code, just copy, and then what you can do is you can create this try catch block. Okay, try, then catch. Okay, so here let's paste that in. So try all this. If something happened, throw the exception, and that one we will catch. If something like that happened, we catch here exception. We can say that exception, the type into the exception, and then we can echo out the exception, and we get to use this get message method. Okay, this should be E. Okay, so this is how you can use try catch block. So try this code. If something happened, throw an exception, and that thrown exception you want to catch in this catch block, and you want to do whatever you want to do. In this case, we just want to echo out. Okay, let's give it a try. ID cannot be a negative number. Okay, the errors as well. Construct must be type of integer, null given, and all that stuff. Okay, so basically this is what we're interested in, and we get that. Now there's one more to that. Try catch, and there is another one called finally. So let's see that as well. So after catch, you can, this is optional. Okay, you don't have to use it, but you can if you want. So finally in this block, what we can do is we can, let's echo something out. Done with try and catch. Okay, let's save, give it a refresh, and as you can see, ID cannot be negative num, done with try and catch. So this can be a kind of a default output. Okay, so it's completely optional, just so you know that you have this finally block available as well. Okay, so this is how you can catch the exception. Okay, so finally we have come to the very last video of object oriented programming. So you learned quite a lot in this series. Okay, now with all this knowledge, you will have absolutely very easy time learning Laravel. Everything will be fun, because if you had no idea of OOP, and you had, even though if you had good understanding of PHP, and if you would go to learn framework like Laravel, you would be completely lost. Okay, so all these classes, extents, interface, static, all these different ways of accessing the properties, methods, all this stuff, it would be extremely difficult for you to understand. But now that you have gone through all this, it will be a piece of cake, trust me. So your next step should be learning a framework like Laravel. All right, so I wish you all the best. Once you start working with a Laravel, you will never look back. Okay, it is extremely powerful, extremely developer friendly. Routing, authentication, everything is packed into this amazing framework. Okay, the Blade templating engine, talking to database using the eloquent ORM. So I wish you all the best. Go ahead and start digging Laravel PHP framework, because you have got the solid understanding of object oriented programming. All right, thank you very much for being with me. Thanks for learning with me, and I will see you in the Laravel side. Thank you very much.